I really love trying to create full, detailed drawings using really minimal supplies. So in this video, I am going to try and create a full portrait using just one pencil. Hey everybody, my name is Kirsty and my aim is to help you improve your art so that you can create drawings that you are really proud of. And in this video, I'm going to try and create a portrait using just a white pencil on black paper. Let's get started. So I have actually done this technique before when I drew a cat using only white pencils on black paper. And so I'm going to start by running through the couple of materials I'll be using for this drawing, but there really isn't that many. First of all, I'll be using black paper, and this pad that I'm using is really thick. It's the Faber-Castell mixed media pad, and so it's just completely black paper. And this is really good because it has a bit of texture to the surface, so it clings onto the pencil really well, which is great for this type of drawing. The white pencil I'll be using is the Prismacolor white colored pencil, and I am actually using it in a pencil extender for this drawing because the pencil is really small. So a pencil extender is great for getting a little bit of extra use out of your short pencils. Now you can see that even though I'll only be using one pencil, I can actually get a load of different values from this pencil just by changing up the amount of pressure I'm applying to the pencil. So when I apply lots of pressure and do lots of layers with the white pencil, I get a more white value, a brighter, lighter value. Whereas when I apply less and less pressure, more of that black paper shows through, so you get a darker value. And that's how we're going to create a variety of values in this drawing. Something else that I'll be using throughout this drawing is a colorless blender, and this is the Prismacolor Premier Colorless Blender, and I'm just going to use this to blend out my shading just to get a smoother result, especially for certain areas of the skin that I want to be a bit smoother. So this is just a sort of pencil that has no pigment. And another tool that I'm going to use is my indenting tool, and this is great for adding texture to your drawings. Because what you do with this tool is you actually use it before you add any shading, and you indent certain details in your drawing that you want to stay black, for example eyelashes for a portrait. And then when I go over the top with my white pencil, the white pencil won't be able to get into these areas that I am indenting. And I'm just creating a few different textures and details on my black paper just to give you an example of how this technique works. So I'm now going in with my white pencil and I'm just shading that pencil all over these details that I've indented. And as you can see, the white pencil can't get into all of the crevices and grooves that I have indented. So these details stay nice and dark because the pencil can't get into them. So the paper continues to show through in these areas, which gives us a really dark value. You have to be a bit careful when you apply more pressure to your pencil, as it can sometimes get into the grooves if you're not careful. But generally, if you're just doing light shading over the whole area, it shouldn't go into the grooves that you have indented. So this is a great way to create textures in your drawings. So now let's go through the full portrait demonstration, and I started out by creating a sketch of the portrait, a sketch outline on white paper, because I find that it's easier to create a sketch on white paper so you can do all of the erasing. And then I transferred that sketch onto the black paper using a white pastel method, and I show you in more detail how I did that when I drew the cat. So I'll leave a card to that video up above if you want to see how I transferred the sketch. But going back to the portrait, the first thing that I actually did was I just used the indenting tool to indent a few little textures on the skin. So I mainly just did a few little dots to give a more bumpy texture to the portrait, because the portrait that I'm doing is a man. He's got a beard. It's a bit more of a rougher skin texture. So I definitely wanted to create that illusion of texture in the skin by indenting a few little dots and sort of squiggles in the skin area, and that will help create that texture. And then I'm going in with that white pencil, and I just started off really lightly with the pencil, and I'm working basically from dark to light, which is the opposite of what you normally work with when you're drawing on white paper. You normally go from light to dark, whereas in this case I want to slowly build up to those really light highlighted values. And so at the start I use very little pressure on my pencil, just do some very light shading with the white pencil to get in those dark values. And then as I'm building up to those lightest values, for example, there's a highlight on the tip of the nose and on the cheek and above the eyebrows, for example. To get in those highlights, I apply a much more pressure onto that pencil to get in that really light value. And I make sure to keep my pencil nice and sharp at all times so that I'm able to get these really fine details. For example, with the beard, I need to get in lots of tiny hairs, and I'm again building this up in layers to give the look of depth. So I'm doing some hairs really light with the pencil, barely applying any pressure to the pencil, and then for the really bright facial hairs that are a much lighter value, I apply more pressure. And I really enjoyed doing this reference photo because it had a lot of contrast. The light was hitting his face, and then slowly as we sort of recede further into the facial hair, it gets darker and darker. So I was able to create a nice range of values in this portrait, which worked really well with the black paper to give a really high contrast result. And at this point now, I'm just working on the brightest areas, applying so much pressure to the pencil to get it as light as I can in the brightest areas of the reference. So the highlight in the eye, the tip of the nose, and the brim of the hat. I'm making sure they really pop out of the page. And you can see that even though we have used only one pencil, we have got in a full range of values. It doesn't look flat at all, and it just looks really nice and realistic. So it goes to show that you don't need loads of supplies to get a realistic and great drawing. And a final supply that you can use is a white gel pen if you want to add in a couple of extra really bright striking highlights. But this is completely optional. You should be able to create an amazing drawing with just that white coloured pencil. And this technique is something that I only recommend doing when you're not planning to sell your work, because white gel pen isn't archival when it's used on top of coloured pencils, so it might chip off or flake away over time. And so here is the final result. I'm really happy with how this portrait and how it turned out, and I really like the look of white pencil on black paper. I find it really striking and really fun to do because you only have to use one pencil, so you're not constantly switching between different supplies. I really do love doing these sort of videos where I'm challenging myself by limiting my supplies. And if they are the type of videos that you like to watch, let me know, and check out this other one that I did where I created a full in color drawing using just 3 colors: red, blue, and yellow. Check that out. I'll leave a link to it here, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye everybody.